Well, welcome to Specimen series. I'm excited about this episode. It's something a bit different for the Specimen series. We're actually fishing for carp, but Specimen series style. So I've got my barbel rod with me, loaded with some 12-pound line and a little lift float. We're at Waveney Valley Lakes. I've met Blake this morning. He's given me a guided tour. There's lots of different lakes on the complex. We're going to try and stalk a few carp out of the edge using the float. So I've been round with Blake. We've put a little bit of bait in various looking spots in the edge. I'm itching to get started. We've seen some fizzing fish. I can fish several different spots on the complex. Let's go see if we can find some carp. Well, I've just got to the first spot. I'm going to keep my voice down. I put a little bit of pellet and sweet corn here when we had a walk around with Blake, and I think there's a fish on the spot, but stealth is the name of the game. I'm going to creep down there as quiet as I can because they're really close in and see if we can get a bite on this first spot. I'm just going to have a little flick out here with no bait on just to get the depth. There's a bit of tungsten putty on the end there which will actually sink the float if I'm not deep enough. So the putty acts as your plummet. So before I put any more bait in and start fishing properly, so the float's just disappeared, so I need to put a little bit more depth on that. At least it's nice and clear out there. Don't mind if it's a little bit over depth because I can just tighten up and stand the float up, but I should imagine that'll be okay. I don't plan on fishing much more than a rod length out all day, so a nice big stinky lump of paste just in front of these dead lily pads. My word, you'll see what that is. That is a giant, it's a roach or a rudd. That's not what I expected, but I'll take it. Although we're carp fishing, I think it's a giant roach. We'll get it on the unhooking mat, we'll have a look. It's either a roach, a rudd, or a roach-rudd hybrid, but it's enormous, so. Well, I'm swaying towards a true roach on that one. Whatever it is, it's gone £2.10. I have quickly weighed it. It's not the carp we're fishing for, but stalked in the edge on a little lift float. I'll take that, and that's a mega fish to see. So if you think it's a hybrid, drop in the comments what you think it is, but it looks quite roachy to me. Splash a bit of water on these pellets. I like them to be slightly wet when I feed them. It makes them leak off the flavours a little bit more. Plus it's a sunny day. If that sweet corn dries out, it'll float. So I'm going to put a bit more bait down here. I'm going to chill out for a little while and just watch it, because I think catching that roach has just disturbed the swim. I think a carp might come in there if we're patient and just sit back and wait. Well, that hasn't taken too long. I can see them lily pads starting to shake and there's a few little bubbles coming up. So I'm going to creep back into position and see if we can actually catch a carp. It seems if there's quite a few smaller roach on this spot. Now they're knocking the paste off the hook quite quick. I can definitely see tail patterns just in the shaded water to the left. So I'm going to creep, I don't know, 10 yards up the bank, put a little bit less bait in and see if we can catch a carp. Hopefully the depth is about the same here. I'm only 10 yards from where I just caught that big roach. So let's just start with a bit of paste. We're in. Well, as I mentioned, I'm going to let it run out into the lake and let off a bit of steam. I'm not fishing overly light. I've got a 12-pound main line. There are some big carp in here, so it'd be irresponsible to go too light. But on a balanced setup, a £1.75 barbel rod, this is brilliant fun. Off he goes. Well, I might run up and down the bank a little bit and keep Chris busy on the camera. I can always come back and get my net, but I want to try and keep in contact with this best I can. Come round. Right, I'm going to have to dash for my landing net again in a minute. Chris has ran up the bank and got my net for me to save me walking back up there. This one's really pulling my arm off. There's a chance these carp here in Waveney Valley, some of them are probably as old as what I am. Maybe not quite that old, but whoa. This is where a lot of carp anglers started their carping journey. It's got a bit of a place in history, these lakes, so it's lovely to come down here and catch them on this method rather than sitting behind bite alarms. It makes a nice change. That is a typical old Waveney Valley mirror, that one. Lovely job. There we are, lovely. Well, that was tremendous fun on that setup. You can see why he gave me such a scrap. Look at the size of the fins on there, big tail fin, massive, great big pecs, and he absolutely pulled my arm off. And maybe it's an age thing, but as I'm getting older, more active styles of fishing, like this stalking and this float fishing for carp, are the sort of carp fishing I enjoy the most. Well, all in the name of fish care. I've waded out in my trainers a little bit and got wet toes. I don't want him to hit those rocks when I put him back, so let's just lift him off the side of the mat into that slightly deeper stuff. Thank you very much. I decided to have another cast in the corner of that first lake, but I was quite keen, if nothing did happen, to move on with the other lakes. I had so many nice little spots that I'd pre-baited that should do me a bite. So after no more action on that first lake, I walked around the corner. There was a lovely little quiet overgrown corner that looked perfect for a bite, and I was right, there was definitely fish there. I missed a bite quite quickly that told me fish were present. As soon as I got that paste back in position, I wasn't long in getting a more positive bite, and I was into my second fish. There we go. Got something. A little bit more heavy-handed with this one, just because of those willows. Not very big, but he's strong. Hello, mate. In you come. Keep coming. In you go. Lovely. Well, there we are, the second carp of the morning. Not quite as big as that first one, but the giveaway in this little corner. Once I put a little bit of pellet in there, you could see those little pinprick bubbles coming up, and that was good enough to tell me there was some fish here. So it didn't take long. Missed the first bite. Saw that big tail pattern to tell me there were some carp here. Didn't miss the second bite. Well, I'm going to have another go in this corner because there's a few bubbles still coming up, but whilst I'm waiting to see if that float disappears again, I'll talk a little bit about the hardware that I'm using, and I guess it's stepped up float fishing. A lot of this fishing is around lily pads and overhanging trees, so I've got a 1.75 pound Advanta barbel rod here, and I've got a small fixed spool loaded with 12-pound line. I'm of no illusion, if I went a little bit lighter I'd probably get more bites, but what's the point in getting the bites if you're not going to land the fish? So 12-pound line is the order of the day. It's a little bit of hit and hold fish in some of these swims, but the two carp that I've had so far have come in absolutely fine. I'm going to give it 5 more minutes in this corner. I'm not seeing as many bubbles and not as much activity, so we might move to the next lake. But when I have a move next time, I'll probably talk you through the setup itself, the float rig that I'm using. Well, I think it's time to move on to the next spot. Catching that carp has definitely spooked them out of this corner, but another nice little spot and another carp for the morning. We've come round to Sea Lake now, and I've put a little bit of bait by the lily pads, and whilst we're waiting to see if there's any fizzing or any shaking lily pads, I'm going to talk you through the setup that I'm using. It's a nice simple lift setup. There's a few little tweaks though that I think make it a little bit better. The float is held on with a couple of little float stops on an adapter, which means I can adjust the depth really quickly. And coming down to this end, I've got a size 8 hook. That's one of our Advanta wide gape hooks. And rather than having any split shot on the line, because I feel they can damage the line, I've got a blob of putty there, and underneath that putty there's another float stop, and that float stop just acts as something for the putty to grip onto. And there's enough putty on there that if I'm not deep enough, the float will actually sink. So I'm using that putty not only to cock the float, but to tell me how deep it is, like a plummet, I'd say. And then the main weight for casting out, because it's such a small float, I'm fishing a big lump of krill paste. I'm only fishing 1 to 2 rod lengths out, and I can swing that out. Little float was just there for bite indication. And you get 2 types of bite. You get the normal bite where it just sails away, or you get my favourite bites where they lift the bait, lift the putty off the bottom, and the float lays flat on its side. So that's enough talk about the rig. Looking over my shoulder, I can see a few bubbles coming up and some shaking lily pads. So let's get a big lump of paste on this hook, drop it off those lily pads, and see if we can catch another one. Here we go. Take it properly. There we go. Those little tiny bubbles obviously were carp. Better stand up for this one. See if we can find a gap in the pads to just wiggle him through. Come on, mate. Done with a round net in this swim, but he's in. Well, there we are, another Waveney Valley Lakes dinosaur, and put up a great scrap on that float fishing gear, or stepped up float fishing gear I should say. Awesome bite, awesome fight, and a proper old dinosaur. Go. Lovely, thank you. Well, there we are, there's another nice Waveney Valley mirror. After a few missed bites, I think there was a few bream on the spot, maybe a few carp brushing against the line, but there's no mistake in it. When you get a proper bite on the float, it just glides away nicely, and you get that nice solid resistance when you strike. So I'm going to slip this fella back. We're going to try the lake next door. Apparently there's a few carp milling around in the edge, just waiting for my paste to be dropped on their nose. Well, the fishing in the afternoon definitely got a lot slower, but we persevered. We tried a few different lakes, a few different spots, feeding those margins with the pellets and sweet corn, but we didn't see much signs of life. No more fizzing, no more shaking lily pads. I think it's just of a case that they were feeding better in the morning than they were in the afternoon. But I'm back this morning. We're here a little bit early this morning. A different day, different weather. We've had torrential rain overnight. I don't know how much difference that's going to make. I've got Hartsmere Lake behind me, so we have got thundery showers. I've got my coat on. We'll start on Hartsmere. We might go back to Sea Lake because that was very kind yesterday, but let's see if we can catch 1 or 2 more nice Waveney Valley carp in between the rain showers. I'm going to move on to the next lake. It's frustrating because I saw a lot of fish in this swim yesterday afternoon. I did have a look just before we went home and put a little bit of pellet in, and these lily pads were shaking all over the place, but I've seen no signs of life in the margins this morning. It looks like the carp are all in the centre of the lake. There's plumes of bubbles coming up in the middle, but there's nothing in the margins for me to target on the float. So I'm going to keep on my heels. It's prime time for a few bites. They're obviously feeding in this lake, but for the float fishing, they're a little bit too far out. So I'm probably going to head up and have a look at Marsh Lake. There's a little swim in the corner that I think's empty, and we might get a bite in the edge there. can't resist it. We've come back to Sea Lake. It was kind to us yesterday. I think if we're going to get a bigger fish on this trip, this will be where we catch it. Carp, or are you something else? Carp. Are you going to come off the lily pad? Yes. Don't go back in the lily pads. Right, mate, calm yourself down. And then onto the lily pads. I got him. Lovely. Well, there's an example of 5 minutes in the right place. We persevered on Hartsmere with a couple of close shaves, moved back round here to Sea Lake, and this very lively common has picked up my bait almost instantly. So I'm going to persevere in this swim, because like I say, this is a nice carp, but there's some much bigger than this in here. I'm going to try and catch a couple more. Time to release Roger. Thank you. Well, there's something very magical about float fishing. For those of you like me that have been fishing for quite a long while, it's quite often how your angling journey begins, with a bit of float fishing. And there's no truer saying than the only thing better than the appearance of a float is the disappearance of a float. And I get absolutely hypnotised by watching the float, all the little movements, all the little dithers, and then that sensation of getting the strike exactly the right time. And on bigger fish like these carp, big tench, even trot on a float for chub, it's that strike and that sensation of everything absolutely locking up, trying to pull the rod out of your hand, and you go from the most calm, placid, relaxing state to excitement in a split second. And that's what I like about float fishing. Oh my God, this feels a bit, oh, it was a carp. I thought it was a bream for a minute, but let's let him run out the pads. He's off. I'll have to try and turn him now. He's not quite gone as planned. Come on. He didn't know the script. He was supposed to run straight out in the lake, and he's gone down the bank. But I'm sure we can tease him out with a bit of patience. Here he comes. Looks a fairly good fish. That's it. Run out. I have to get on my feet. The pads aren't horrendous. They're not really thick pads. I am on quite tough tackle for float fishing. Well, the difference between this and catching them on your 3.5 pound test covers, this rod actually bends, as you might notice, but it's more than strong enough, even in a weedy swim like this. Come on, up you come. Good at finding those stems on the lily pads. There we go. He was only just hooked. I've done well to keep him on. Here you go. There we are. Lovely. Well, that was a battle and a half, that was. Let's give him a minute or two in there just to recover. Well, it's that time of year where they're all recently spawned out and they look quite slim, but another advantage of using the float, as you know, the minute they pick your hook bait. When we bolt rig for carp, we really rely on the mechanics of the rig and the fish hooking itself, but the minute they pick up that lump of paste, the float moves, I react, and I hook the fish, and that's the style of fishing that I really enjoy.
After catching 2 more carp out of Sea Lake, the area definitely went quiet. I didn't see any more bubbles, the lily pads weren't shaking, so I decided to head back to G Lake where it all started the day before. When I crept back into the swim on G Lake, I could definitely see signs of feeding fish, but very subtle signs, tiny little pinprick bubbles and the odd shaking lily pad. I wasn't sure if it was going to be carp or not, and my suspicions were confirmed when first bite I hooked into a bream.
Yes, carp. Well, after a few bream in a row, I've just moved to the left-hand side of the swim. The pads and the cabbages in front of me were rocking in more of a carp-like fashion. And I'm back on G Lake where it all began yesterday. I'll probably make this the last carp of the morning if I get it in. It feels like a nice one. Stuck. Where's that? He's all right. He's fine. He's good. A few heart-stopping moments with the lily pad stems. Oh, you would. It's like they know where the thicker stems are. No. Get back here. This is horrible. Come on. Happy carp. Come. Here he comes. He's proper cool. Let's get him. He can swim in the net rather than net him, but he's in the net all the same. He's a nice one. Well, I'm so pleased to see this one go in the net. I'm a stubborn old git at times, and although I've caught plenty of fish these last couple of days, I was hoping for a fish exactly like this. This one's the biggest one of the trip. It's a really cool looking carp, and it's a prime example of how effective float fishing can be for carp. So in a world full of buzzers, bite alarms, spinner rigs and bivvies, don't forget how much fun it is catching them on the float. And if you want to have a go at this style of carp fishing and you haven't done it, made it nice and easy for you. There's links to the products that I've used down below in the description to take you through all the tackle. But we've got to have a look at this fish. He's a really cool looking mirror carp, and as I mentioned, the biggest of the trip. Let's get him on the unhooking mat and check him out. Well, there we go, check him out. He is a absolutely lovely proportioned mirror carp. So a big shout out and a thank you to Blake here at Waveney Valley Lakes for inviting us over. It's been the perfect stalking water. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, drop me a comment or two, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.